This is an analysis of the novel Why the Sargasso Sea by the novelist Jean Rhys. Jean Rhys was born in 1890 on the Caribbean island of Dominica. In 1907, Rhys left Dominica to pursue her education in England. Sadly, she never returned to the Caribbean, except for a short trip in 1936. The reasons are 2 world wars, a lack of money, and the change in the cultural and political status of the English colonies, and she finished her life in remote English villages. Jean Rhys' first mention of working on this novel is in October 1945, but it won't be published until 1966. She mentioned that this book, quote, might be the one book I've written that's much use. This quote is from the Letters of Jean Rhys, page 39, by Francis Widame and Diana Millie. The reason for this comment is that this book challenged many ideas that were accepted truths, such as the glories of the British Empire, the Victorian era culture, and the perception of femininity. This novel is divided into 3 parts. The first is told in the heroine's own perception Antoinette as a child. In the second, her husband, Mr. Rochester, describes his arrival on the island, his marriage, and its disastrous consequences. The last part is once more narrated by his wife, but the scene is now in England and she is now locked up inside an attic room in Thorfield Hall. The Jars. It is a coming-of-age story. It has elements of the main character transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and how hard it is to live between 2 cultures as a British woman but also a Jamaican woman. It is an historical fiction, for we have mention of historical events such as the Emancipation Act, and we see its consequence through the eyes of a white Creole woman and a British man. Quote from the book: "Still waiting for this compensation the English promised when the Emancipation Act was passed. Some will wait for a long time." Page 9. Supernatural. That one is if you believe that Christophine, Antoinette's servant, truly has supernatural powers, and there are many mentions in this book of voodoo magic, the zombie in particular, which might be an allusion of what Rochester wanted in a wife, an obedient slave. Quote from the book: "A zombie is a dead person who seems to be alive, or living person who is dead." Page 64. Gothic. There are many creepy houses and ghost stories, and the way they are said give a feeling of discomfort to the character and through him, the reader. Quote from the book: "Is there a ghost? A zombie there?" Page 63. Modernist. There are many descriptions of the political and social issues of the British Empire. All of this might be a way for the author to criticize the English culture. Now I'm going to take an extract from the book and describe him in particular. Quote from the book. I hated the mountains and the hills, the rivers and the rain. I hated the sunset of whatever color. I hated its beauty and its magic and the secret I would never know. I hated its indifference and the cruelty which was part of its loveliness. Above all, I hated her, for she belonged to the magic and the loveliness. She had left me thirsty, and all my life would be thirst and longing for what I had lost before I found it. Page 103. Spoken by Rochester, these lines makes him a more complex and psychologically interesting character. Like Antoinette, Rochester suffered from paranoia, suspecting that everyone laughed at him, including his own bride. This paranoia drives him to self-contempt, hatred, and the need to regain control. Rochester's hatred of the natural landscape stems from his inability to read it or commune with it, while his servants and his wife finds an abundance of meaning in their surrounding. Turning this anger on Antoinette, he seeks to assert his power by becoming her puppeteer. This passage, more evidently than most in the book, exposes his logic, however despicable, of his cruel need to gain dominance. This part possesses elements of psychological horror, a subgenre of these two genres, psychological and horror, that relies on mental, emotional, and psychological states to frighten, disturb, or unsettle the reader. The end.